this computer. Here we go. So I am recording this now, and then afterwards, I'll figure out a way to get it to you. So
well, let's get going. I know it's important. So good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. I know everybody's got busy schedules, whether it's teaching or looking after the units during the somewhat quiet summer months. What we wanted to do, this is in kind of response to a number of individual requests I received in the Dean's office about help with either website design, website utilization. I know we're all, particularly those that are in a sort of a DPE role or unit head role or something like that, face a little bit of a pinch pressure for enrollments and recruitment and all those other things. And I think the website tends to be the first point of first impression, the landing page, if you like, for where potential new students, whether those are internal to Grand Valley exploring majors we have in Chechik, or external folks that are looking to maybe come back and do a graduate degree. So it's an important first step to sort of create that first impression. So rather than kind of have the marketing team or individual consultations with you as almost a case-by-case basis, what we thought it was good to do to bring them together as a group, really. So I want to introduce Zach and Joe from our institutional marketing team. Zach has a specialty in sort of working with website design, website optimization, utilization, what it should include. And so he's going to talk to us a little bit about that this afternoon. And then Joe's specialty is really that SEO, as we call it, that search engine optimization. Whenever you go on Google or some of those key search engines and you type in those keywords, what prioritizes some over others? Now, clearly, some of that is how much they pay to Google to push them up a little bit higher. But we're looking at the resources we have. What are some of the tips and tricks that we can employ that can allow students to find us maybe over some of our competing institutions? So we've got an hour and a half. I don't think it'll go that long. It'll give us an opportunity to sort of do some general presentation work. And then if you've got your individual questions, then feel free to sort of fire those off and get those asked. And I'm sure they'll stick around and sort of help on a case by case if needed. Again, reminder, there is coffee, water, and snacks, cakes. You want to help yourself with those during the session. And I'll turn it over to your capable hands, sir.
sounds great. Cool. Thank you. Well, as you said, I'm Zach. I work on the web team. Joe and I both do. And so we were asked to come here and just kind of, instead of, like he said, instead of each one of you reaching out to us and asking questions, probably better to just have you all in the same room for my sanity mainly, because that's a lot of emails to answer. But also it's a really good time to kind of have kind of a group talk and group discussion about it all. And so, so that's why I'm here. I'm going to show you just some tips and tricks, that kind of stuff, and hopefully have a good discussion about it. And if you have any questions, please ask, because that's why we're all here. And so, so my first question is, show of hands, how many have logged into and used the CMS? I hope you had. I really hope you had. So we've got about half-ish. And so part of what I'll do, right, the reason I ask them that is I want to explain what it is and how it works. And so for the people that have used it, this will probably be a little bit of repetition, and that's perfectly okay. At Grand Valley, we use a content management system, stands for CMS. CMS is oftentimes for like a larger corporation. It'll be something that they go to a store and buy, not a store, but they'll go to a provider and they will you install and use their CMS. At Grand Valley, it's a little bit unique because the CMS is built by our developers. And so on the web team, there's 9 of us. There's Joe, myself, and a whole slew of other people. And amongst those people are developers. And those developers are the people who have created this CMS. So it's a little bit unique than what you would have in like a corporate environment, where if you were to work on web pages, the CMS there is more than likely store-bought. So this is completely unique to us. So, which is great because it also allows us to do and make changes to things that typically you wouldn't be able to have in a store-bought CMS. And so what is a CMS? A CMS is a piece of software that allows you and anybody who has very minimal or none at all technical skills as far as developing, website coding, the advanced side of creating web pages. You don't have to have that. A CMS basically allows you to essentially drag and drop content, and what you see is what you're going to get on the web page. So it's a user-friendly way for anyone to make web pages. And so the CMS at Grand Valley, there's some uniqueness to it with any CMS. But what you'll notice is when you get into the CMS, when you go to make web pages, is that there are certain limitations. There are certain things you can't do, and that's by design. And so, for example, if you have a website about a conference coming up, you may log into the website and say, I want all the colors to be green. It's a Christmas themed conference. I want it to be red and white themed. I want it to have candy canes all over. I want reindeer, all that stuff. But at the same time, you have to think it's going to be on a GVSU website, right? So part of the limitations is that we limit what you can do because of the GVSU brand, okay? And so certain things such as color themes, right? You're not going to be able to pick certain colors for backgrounds or photos, text, that sort of stuff. Text styling. There's not, like, if you go into a Word document, you can choose all the different fonts, right? You can't do that in the CMS, and that's on purpose. The reason is because the idea being whoever goes to the web team website and then also then goes to education website, the theme is consistent between the two, okay? And obviously there's going to be different styles and different looks, and that's okay. But the big thing is that you don't want something to look like apples and then go to something that look like oranges, and then the person questions, is this even a Grand Valley website, okay? So just know that if you've never used the CMS, there are certain limitations with it. There are certain things you can and can't do, and that's by design. Joe is going to talk a lot about accessibility. That's one of the most important things for the web team. And the CMS also has built-in safeguards for accessibility. One of those things being alt text. When you upload a picture of somebody, perhaps it's a headshot or whatever it might be, you have to provide alternate text or alt text to describe exactly what that picture is to a person who may be using a screen reader, okay? And so the CMS has things in there built in that help with accessibility as well. Joe will cover that a lot. And a lot of what Joe and I may say will overlap because the CMS also has accessibility and SEO's options built into it. He will further elaborate on that. So little bit of what I do in my role at the web team and how I can help you going forward. If you email me and say, can you create a page about this conference? The answer is no. If you email me and say, Zach, how did so-and-so make this on this page? I would like to do it. I would happily reply back and tell you how to do that. So my job in the web team's role is not to create content for you. Our job is to show you how to do it. With the CMS, hopefully it's pretty easy. That's the whole purpose of the CMS, is so that it's easy, it's user-friendly, and you won't have a lot of difficulty doing it. So that's what my job is. My job is to help you along the way, not to help you create content. And then along the way, if you have questions or if you have concerns, suggestions, let me know, because as the web team, it is our job to help build the CMS and help create it as a product that ultimately helps the university and helps create traffic to websites. Okay, so if you do have questions, if you do have comments, feel free to reach out to me. But one of the things that is that sometimes gets misunderstood is, well, let's reach out to the web team and they'll have them make that page for us. And it's not really what we do. We're there to help you. We're not there to help create stuff. So, so that's my introduction. Okay. Now we'll get into some of the do's and the don'ts, is what I'm going to call it, of the CMS and in particular of some web page development stuff. So the first thing I want to do is talk about what I call the eyeball test. And so I'm going to pick on Rita. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to ask Rita, I'm going to open up a web page and I want you to tell me, when you first open the page, where do your eyes go? Okay, so I'm going to open the page now. What is the first thing you want to do when you go to this page? You see this right here. What's the next thing you're going to want to do? Your silence, that is exactly what I was looking for right there, is if you go to this page, it's just text, right? If I know anything about professors, they like to write, okay? They like to have, it's always funny, I always joke with a lot of professors, is I can tell the emails from staff, it's this long, an email from a professor is this long, and they're asking the same thing, okay? So I think you could probably all agree with that. Anyway, but that your example there, your explanation of you see the header first, and then the next thing, because when I go to this page, the first thing I want to do is I want to do this. I want to scroll down. Okay. There is nothing on this page that catches your attention. And unfortunately, there are some pages out there that look like this. So from your eyes, you may think to yourself, well, I'm getting all of the necessary information out there. Why aren't people going to it? Why aren't people reading it? For me, I go to this page, and if Rita says, can you help me with this? The first thing I do, I look at it and I immediately scroll down looking for anything. It's like my eyes are looking for something to go to, right? And there's just nothing there. Okay. Now, this is an extreme example because it's just all text. There's nothing there. But I want to show you the difference between this site, which is on our test system, and what the web page actually looks like and how much different it is. Now, granted, this is a little bit smaller of a screen because I'm on the projector, but you can see it's got the header, it's got the color, it's got the clear text. And when I scroll down, there's links. I know exactly, like, I don't have to question what I'm looking for, right? The most important information that you want your audience to see needs to go at the top, okay? So for the Police Academy site, what's at the very top is the informal or informational meeting presentation notes and the applications. And so as I scroll down, I always pay attention to where my eyes go, right? So I see the text for the higher standards, I see the text for the paragraph, but I also see these buttons over here. And so you have to think, if I'm a potential person who may be interested in going to the Police Academy, this is probably the most important information. What's the requirements for getting into it, and how do I get information? And so that's what I call the eyeball test, is when you go to a web page and the first time you go, pay attention to where your eyeballs go. Because yeah, you may have a lot of information and it might be the most important information ever to get out there. But if it's structured in, if it's structured in a way like this, nobody's going to look at it. So you have to make it attractive. You have to make it stand out. You have to make it appear and pop a little bit. Okay. So then people will always ask, well, how do I do that? Do you have tips? And each person is what I think is attractive and what looks good on the page may be completely different than what you think. And so what I say to you is pay attention to what you like, okay? As you're going to Grand Valley websites and you go to, say, like the music and theater department, or you go to the Police Academy page, or you go to whatever the page is, pay attention to what you like. And if you like it that much, try and mimic it, try and replicate it. If you don't know how, let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you out with that. The biggest thing is you don't want this, because if you go here, I'm sorry, it might be the best information in the world. You may think this is so important, but nobody's going to read it. And so you want to be able to have that flash. You need to be able to have separation. You need to be able to pay attention to where your eyeballs goes as you scroll down the page. And as Rita said, when we went to this page the first time, for her, the first thing that popped out was the heading. For me, the very first thing that popped out is I want to scroll down and see what else there is. So if that's the case, everything that's on the page I just missed because I scrolled down. Okay, does that make sense? Cool. And again, as a helpful tip is if you find something that you think, wow, this looks really great, try and replicate it yourself. And if you can, let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you and at least get you walking down that path of how can we make it look good. Okay. That kind of butts up into my second don't, if you will, and that's just more of the same thing of long text. Okay. You may have a, for example, this police academy site, it has a lot of really good information, but a lot of the information, if you stick it in paragraph form, it's the same idea. People are just going to glance right over it and move right past. It's not like reading a book or an article. A lot of times you're on your phone or you're on your laptop and you're just looking for the fun stuff. So avoid long texts, break it up however you can, whether it's using pictures, whether it's using a horizontal line, whether it's just creating some substance within the text, buttons, whatever it might be. You want to avoid long text as much as possible. Next thing I'm going to talk about, which Joe is also going to talk about a lot too, is the use of alt text. Okay. And so this is your department's office staff page. Okay. And what I wanted to demonstrate here is that when you have a page that has multiple photos on it, perhaps the photos are similar, but perhaps they're different. So in this case, they're different. They're the headshots of all the different people, right? When you go to upload that picture, what you don't want to do, let me show you. The easiest thing for somebody to do, and unfortunate what they will do, is we'll take this picture here and underneath the alternative text, they're like, well, I don't know, I'm just going to put photo. And so you put photo 1. Then you go down to the next picture. There's Mark, and they'll put photo 2. And this is an extreme no-no. Don't do that. You want to put in the alt text, you want to describe what it is that a person is seeing, okay? It's the Goldilocks method. You don't want too little, you don't want too much, you want just the right amount, okay? So if we take this picture of Mark, for example, I don't want to put Mark. Nobody knows what that is. It's just Mark. At the same time, I don't want to put Mark Hoffman standing in front of a river with a building in the background, with a blue sky, with some clouds, wearing a light colored shirt with glasses and a beard. While you might think, well, I'm giving as much description as possible, the issue with that is that a person who is using a screen reader, the screen reader is going to read everything that you have in the alt text. It also is important for SEO stuff. Joe will get to that as well. But like I said, it's the Goldilocks method. You don't want too little. You don't want too much. You want just the right amount. And so what is here is Mark's name and his position. That's perfectly fine. Perhaps you want to put headshot of Mark, so that a person who is using a screen reader who doesn't have the ability to see a screen and is relying on the screen reader knows exactly what that picture is, okay? So we have seen that a lot, unfortunately, where it's like, perhaps it's a photo album, and instead of putting instead of putting gym floor with people playing basketball, it's just basketball 1, basketball 2, basketball 3. And you have to think of the person who can't see that. What's the message coming across? Okay. It's so important that you keep up on that. Correct. Joe might have a little bit more to say about that. For me, I'm of the more is better than less, but also not, you know what I mean? Like, not all of the information. So yes.
I would add that to someone using a screener having the option to skip that if they don't want. So they could skip what the alt text is saying if they don't care about the images. So you want to receive it just so you are capturing that post.
Yep.
But in this instance, I would have put their email, phone number, simply name and position.
Yep. Again, it's such a tricky answer because you don't want to leave them with too little, but you also don't want to bombard them with a lot of information. So it's like I said, Goldilocks. So that's alt text. Very important. And also for those of you who are new to the CMS, when it comes to alt text, whenever you upload a picture to the CMS to be displayed on a page, you're required to put alt text in for a photo. And so it's not an option, it's a requirement. You have to put that in there. Okay. And so I think a lot of times that's where people are like, I just want to get this done. That's when they put photo 1, photo 2, photo 3, and that's not good. So next do's and don'ts. This is a big one. And one that we get asked all the time, and that is the use of photos. So hypothetically, say you're creating a page for a conference and you the theme of the conference is birds. And so you say to yourself, I want some photos of birds to go onto my website. There's a right way to do it, and there's a very, very, very wrong way to do it. The very, very wrong way could end up costing you money. It has happened. So I'm going to show you the wrong way to do it right now. So if you choose to remember anything, don't remember this, okay? So I'm going to make my webpage about birds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to type in birds. And I say, oh, I go to images. I really like this photo here. I am now going to download this photo, save it to my computer, then re-upload it to the CMS and put this gorgeous picture of a bird on my webpage. That is 100% wrong. Do not do that. If you do that, there is potential for a fine, as we have had in other departments, because you're basically stealing the picture. And there are some, I don't want to use the word nasty, but there are some law firms and lawyers who seek this stuff out. And so they will go and they will find websites that are using illegal or pictures illegally without permission, without copyright. And they will send them a letter and say, you need to change this. If you don't change this, you owe us X amount of thousands, typically in the thousands. So a lot of times you're not purposely stealing it. You're just unaware that you shouldn't steal it. So I'm telling you, do not do this. So let me show you some options in terms of trying to find photography. One of the things that is available is what we call the GVSU Widen Collective, okay? This is a collection of photographs that the photographers at Grand Valley have taken. And they are available to use on your CMS. They are free. You do not have to pay anything for them. Part of working at Grand Valley and part of working in the CMS, you have access to this, okay? You would, if you've never been here before, you would create an account. This is all managed through UCOM. When you go to create an account, they'll send an email to them. They will typically get back to you pretty quick for you to be able to log in and access it. So I just want to briefly touch and show you what this is, because there's a lot of really, really good things on the Widen Collective. So for example, I'm going to type in bird like we did before, and let's see if we get any hits. There's some birds there, right? And so you may see a picture of a bird or a tree or whatever it is that you're looking for within the Widen Collective. And because a photographer at Grand Valley took this, you're able to use this in the CMS, okay? I'm not going to go into the details of how to use Widen, but I will show you that if you go to the web team homepage, and you click on tools, there's a link here for Widen Collective. And this is a page that I've created that shows you and walks you through exactly what it is and how to use the Widen Collective. I use the Widen Collective all the time. I'm probably in there maybe daily looking for photos, looking for content to put onto people's pages. So, question.
Is that one of the images you sort of scrolled over had a red flag that said I am restricted? Does that mean you can't use that?
There are certain, yes, yes. There are certain, in particular with like campaigns. So like, for example, if the marketing department has a campaign going for whatever it might be, there might be certain photos that are off limits to the rest of campus because they want a specialty use it for that particular campaign. So yes, and because I'm part of marketing, I see it, you may not see it. So yes.
There's not a whole lot of pictures about tourism.
Yep.
And stuff like that. So there's a study abroad picture that I was like, this could be tourism, but it's from study abroad. I still put that on the website.
There's a great, we had a class a while ago, and I wonder if it's still out there. I may have to look about the ethical use of photos. And this came about because there was a news story about there was a picture on one of the Grand Valley websites, and it was about for the study abroad program, I think it was, or maybe it was international students coming in, and it was a picture of a person who was of dark skin, and the caption was something like, you know, international students are welcome, blah, 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 blah. Turns out he was from Grand Rapids. And so it's that ethical kind of being cautious of your audience. And so if it works for you, I would say just be cautious of it. There's no right or wrong answer, but don't make the judgment, I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah. Yeah, because that's a big thing. So now also the piggyback on yours is there's the Widen Collective's not going to give you 100% of what you need, right? Like it's just not possible. Like as great as the photos are, I understand there's certain photos that you are looking for that you can't get. And so there is a website, which I just learned changed its name. Used to be called Creative Commons. Now it is called Openverse, evidently. I learned this today. Evidently Openverse / Creative Commons, the photographs that you see on this page are all under the Creative Commons licensing, which means they're free to use on web pages. Okay. And so for example, if we go back to our bird example, if I type in bird here, you can see there's a lot of pictures of birds here that I could use. And because they're on the Creative Commons, they're free to use. So this would be a way for you to get that picture that the Widen Collective may not have, but at the same time, you're not stealing from somebody. Okay. Where people have gotten in trouble before is they've done the search for Google or for a bird in Google, they download it, and then they get a copyright strike against them. Whereas if they would have just done this instead, they would have been fine. There would have been no fine, there would have been no litigation, blah, 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 blah. So what was the last part you said?
Attribution.
Yes. So I always say take it with a grain of salt, because this is not 100%, but it's a lot better than Google. How about that? Because it might be for me to steal a picture of something, it's incredibly easy, right? In order to track it though is very difficult. So hypothetically, let's say we use this picture. And if I were to download that, it would keep all the attributes of it, right? It would, who the author is, what kind of camera it was taken, right? Those kind of attributes with it. One way you could get around that is by simply taking a screenshot of it. All those attributes are gone. And instead, the attributes of what the photo is now the attributes of my computer. I'm still stealing the picture, right? And so that's why stealing photos is kind of, it's tricky. It is really tricky. So the Creative Commons, or whatever this is called now, it's not 100% foolproof, but at the same time, it's a heck of a lot better than Googling a picture. So just kind of keep that in mind, okay? Your use of the Widen collection is going to be the best option, but there is also other free sources out there as well. So yes.
Perhaps like our students in the classroom, maybe like for your example, the students in the study of urban, like maybe an offsite somewhere for tourism, that they provide photos with, and then we work with students in the schools, and we make photo releases and things like that.
Perfect.
So then what is the storage, like the storage of the photo release form? Like how do we ensure that we continue to maintain that if, you know, like 5 years down the road, we're still using that?
Yeah. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. If it were me and I was in your situation, I would likely save those digitally somewhere. Not in the CMS, maybe. If you want to, I guess you could. I wouldn't. If it were me, I would make, this is my personal thing, is I would make a Google Drive or a shared drive on my Google Drive, put photo releases and just save them all there. And then I would call it my CYA folder, cover your, and so then, you know, if and when this ever comes about, you've got them all in the same place. Okay. If you're not a, this is cringy to say, if you're not a digital person, you have everything printed, stick it in that file cabinet somewhere. I don't think that idea, but that is also another option. So yeah. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way to save that particular, but I would, like I said, for me, I would just make it accessible so that it's in a place where it's easily found if it's the fan and you have to go out and find it. So
But are there any, like, maybe like we have a list of like publicly viewable, like our assessment?
as far as the release publicly of,
Not the police.
Okay.
Publicly viewable.
if you've got that release, you should be good to go. Okay. It's not a question of if this, then this kind of thing. It's kind of all or nothing, right? And the other thing too to keep in mind is that you're talking about a very, very, very small percentage, but it is something that happens. So in your instance of here's a photograph of a student or that a student took, they've signed the release. In my eyes, you've done everything you needed to do, and you are safe. If it comes to something of, hey, you can't use that photo anymore, take it down, no problems, no ifs, ands, or buts, because you've done all the right stuff. The bigger issue comes to when people just Google picture of a bird and they download it, and it's like my aunt's photo in California and she's looking for money, so now she's going to sue you, and there you go. So yes. So good question. The Widen, and I should have been a little bit more clear with this. The Widen Collective is nothing that you would upload photos to. The Widen Collective is a repository of where photos are that you can download. Okay, so everybody in this room, you wouldn't upload photos to Widen. You're only downloading photos from Widen. Okay, if that makes sense. So then what you would, in your instance, if you want the photos from Widen, you would then download them. Up to Widen, you wouldn't do that. No. Nope. So if you want photos that are available to use and you're giving the permission to do it, you could just upload them to the CMS. You don't have to use the Widen for that. The Widen, I mean, I guess technically you could, but that would be a conversation for UCOM. For the CMS, it would be you're uploading you're going to upload the pictures and people are going to be able to find it. So yeah, I should have been a little bit more clear on that. I know that is a question I get is how do I upload my pictures to Widen? It's like, you don't, you get the pictures from Widen. So anyway, any more questions with that? Cool, good questions, because this is something that kind of hits home for all of us in the web team. The next thing is kind of one that I think the next tip I want to give is one that I think people kind of get a little standoffish on and might have a little bit of fight with, but that's okay. I'm here to help. And that is the use of PDFs. If you have a PDF that you want to upload and put onto the CMS, my number one question to you is going to be, can it be a form or can it be recreated as a web page? In the perfect world, you would not upload any PDFs. We would love it if nobody could upload a PDF. So for example, you may have a PDF of a flyer of this event for the birds and Christmas, whatever it is. You've created this beautiful PDF flyer and you want to upload it so that people can see it. The problem is that it creates a very poor user experience for the person wanting to view that flyer. Instead of just clicking on a web page and having it there, they now have to go to the web page, click on it to download the PDF, and then the PDF's available, okay? So in the perfect world, PDFs are not a thing. I want to show you something that I was asked a couple weeks back that I want to demonstrate kind of what some thoughts and some things about it. I got an email from somebody over in the finance department and she needed help with, yes.
Sharing the screen with somebody. Just share it now.
It should be.
Oh, I don't know if you're sharing the window.
It should be.
No, you're probably right.
Okay, I hope so. Fingers crossed. I hope so. Anyway, yeah, so I got this email a couple weeks ago from a person over in the finance department, and they wanted help manipulating this PDF. First of all, that's not what I do. I don't help with PDFs. So then I had to say, okay, this is not my job, but what is it you're trying to do? And her response is that, well, we've changed something on this form. We need to upload this to the website so that people can download it and fill it out and send it to me. To which then I was able to fight back and say, why don't we use the form builder? So within the CMS is a tool we have called the form builder. And I want to show you, I was able to, with this person's help, I was able to walk her through recreating this form, which the process would have been if you needed to fill this particular form out, because the fields are all kind of janky and they're just weird. I couldn't click in certain boxes because you can see it just doesn't work right. And so what I was able to do is I was able to take this form that is a PDF that normally you would have had to print off, fill it out, scan it. And once it's scanned, email it to yourself and then email it to whatever person, right? I'm sure we've all had this in our life at some point. What I was able to do is we were able to take this form and instead of making it a PDF, we turned it into a form in the form builder. And it does the exact same thing. It's just electronic. And so person fills in all the information that normally is at the top of that PDF. And then it's a simple, what is your request? What is it you're trying to do? And so if you look at the PDF, this first one was request to close a position number. And so if I go here, request to close a position number, and then it asks the same information. The difference is that when a person fills this out and hits submit, they get the person who sent this PDF to me then gets an email saying the form has been filled out. They can go in, they can view it. So it eliminates all the paperwork. It eliminates the PDF. And the other big thing about it is that this is way, way, way more accessible than what a PDF can be. Okay. So if you do have a person who relies on a screen reader, for them to come to this page and fill this out is not even 100, 1,000 times easier than them trying to fill out a PDF, because the PDF you have to make sure is tagged properly, which then likely involves you sending the PDF out somewhere else, maybe a cost involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, so when I say, if you have a PDF and you think to yourself, I want to upload this so people can see it, think twice about it. What is it that you're really wanting to upload the PDF for? Can it be a web page or can it be a form? Okay. If you have questions on how to do this or how to use the forms or the form builder, on the web team page underneath CMS is form builder training. And this walks you through everything you need to know on how to use the form builder. Okay. It is, yes. So whoever created the form, so there's a little bit of a security measure in place. So let's just say, for example, that form, you're putting in all that information about FOAP numbers or whatever it is. For any form out there, when somebody fills it out, Sean would get an email saying there's been a new form, or somebody has filled out the form. And you get an email saying somebody filled out the form, but you don't get the responses in the email itself. Okay, and that's on purpose. So yes.
For anyone in here that maybe has like PDF, like application for practicum or capstone course example, institutional marketing was really one of the best, long time ago, the set up for our students, a form style application for practicum. Things like that are practicum can interact with too. It's a little bit more than just this.
Yeah.
But it works so well.
And
you get an email when the student has submitted. It doesn't give details, but
yep, you can go in and see it. And then the other thing too is that, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay. Let me go into the web team page here. The other nice thing about it too is that once you've created that form, there's an option to clone it. And so you don't have to recreate the wheel. You clone the form. Maybe it's a form that you had from 2020 to 2021, and now you need the next year. You don't have to recreate it all. You clone it, change what you need, and then you resubmit it for approval. So
10 programs have the same 685 applications, different title.
Beautiful user.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me show you. So this is what, when you're in the CMS and you're in the form builder, this is what it looks like. You'll see, so for example, the this FOAP access request form, you can see there's 20 people that have filled this out. If I click on this 20 here, I can see all of the responses, and then I can click on the view button and it will tell me exactly what they're asking for. And again, when somebody fills it out, I get an email or whoever's responsible, and you can also set it up so that multiple people will get an email, not just the originator. So if Rita sets up a form for XYZ, whenever somebody fills that out, the email will go to Paul, it'll go to Mark, it'll go to Sean, it'll go to whoever, and all of you will get a notification that somebody's filled it out. At that point, my job is done because the information's out there. The other nice thing about this too that people don't realize is that there is the ability to export it. And so you can take all of these responses, click this export spreadsheet, and it'll take all of the responses and it'll put it in a CSV file for you so that you can do whatever it is that you want with it. Okay. So the too long didn't read of what I just talked about for the last 10, 15 minutes. If you can avoid using PDFs, do it, because the form builder is a much, much, much better option, or creating a content page, a web page with all of the relevant information about that. Okay. Okay. So I've been talking a long time. I didn't think I would be talking this long. So I'm going to skip some things and talk about some very common questions that we get over on the web team. Okay. Questions that we get emails on often. First question is, let's take our wonderful College of Education and Community Innovation page. Okay. Excuse me. I'm going to pick on you again, Rita. Rita emails me and says, hey, we've got a new faculty member that started. Sean just started in this group. Can you give access for him to make changes into this page? Can I? Yes. Should I? No. If you are an administrator on the page, which we can take a look and see who is. So currently these are the only people that do. There is a certain, within the administrators, there's this checkbox right here that says manage administrators, okay? So if somebody new comes along or somebody says, I want to make changes to this page, can you give me access? Can I? Yes, I won't, because it's, as an administrator on that CMS site, it's your responsibility to come in here and make changes and add whoever it is, okay? Couple things about if you are new to the CMS and you get added to a page, there's an accessibility training that you have to complete before you can do anything in the CMS. It's a 16-minute long video of me. You'll hear me talking and whatever. And then at the end, there's a little quiz. You have to do that once a year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you've let that training pass and you email me and say, can you just mark me as pass? I have to get something done. Answer is no every time. So you have to complete an accessibility training annually to do that. And then there's also a user agreement that you have to say, basically saying, if you put content out there that's bad, we have the ability, we will take it down, kind of thing. So that's one of the most common questions is, how can you add an administrator to the site? Can I? Yes, I won't though. I will allow you to do it. And also there are several training videos out there, and one of them is how to add an administrator. I happen to have it bookmarked because of the amount of times I get this question asked. So that's question number one. Number two, this is relatively new within the past couple of years. Let's say you have in the office, you've got a couple student workers, and you want to be able to have those student workers go in, make changes, update the page, whatever it might be. Can I have a shared account in the CMS? i.e., can you have that front desk worker that you have that maybe are 3 or 4 students? Can they share an account to log into the CMS to go in and make changes? And as of a couple, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, the answer to that is no. If you want anybody to make changes to a page in CMS, they have to, one, be an active student or faculty or staff member, i.e. in Banner, are they active? Yes. Or are they active? No. So each student would then have to have access to the CMS. So there is no shared accounts. It caused a little bit of an uproar when it first happened, but the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Let's say you have an angry student, logs in using College of Education, temp, whatever, you don't really know who it is. They go on a page and they just put 4-letter cuss words all over it, hit save. How do you know who made the change, right? You've got 4 people sharing the same account. So there's an accountability factor to it as well. So can you have shared accounts to log into the CMS? No. As long as they are active in Banner, they will be able to be added to any site so that they can log in and make changes. Make sense? Cool. One of the things that Joe, I don't know if Joe's going to touch on it or not, I'm just going to show you real quick, is when you're in the CMS, like we are here, there is one of the other questions we get about is about analytics, wanting to know about the traffic going to your page. And underneath more is a button that says analytics. And if you click on it, it takes it a few seconds to load because it's going out and getting data. But then you can see some information about your page in particular and some of the traffic that's being generated. Okay. And so you can see it's got a date frame, a date time range up here. You can specify what page you want to look at. And then it provides some colorful graphs and charts about what you see here. A lot of what the analytics is controlled by Google. Analytics are really tricky. So what you see here is we're kind of at the mercy of Google, right? I don't know if you know this, Google's kind of big. We don't have like a personal contact at Google. We can reach out and be like, hey, change this. Oh, okay. But it does provide some really good information about your page. And so you can see how many people are returning visitors compared to new visitors, mobile versus desktop, traffic from social media, etc. So what this is really beneficial for is, let's say you announce a new program and then you're wondering if people are actually going to the site to see it. My guess is that on the 31st of May, maybe there was something that generated a lot of traffic to the site because there's a spike there. And so you can kind of see, and you'll be able to tell, like, maybe you do a big marketing campaign for the college you can look and see, like, is it actually being beneficial? Are we seeing some of the results for that? Okay. And that's built into the CMS. So it's underneath more, you click on analytics and it's right there. The last common question that I get often from people is they will come to me and say, I want to make a website. So who is the CMS for? If I go to on the web team page, there is underneath the CMS a request new CMS site. And I just want to focus on this top little blurb here to just kind of discuss what the CMS is for. The CMS is for departmental use. Okay. The CMS is not for Sean to put all of his research up on and show all of the data for that. The CMS is not for course related projects, like for your students, whatever it might be. And it's also not for student organizations. And so it's for departmental use only. So if you are a professor and you're wanting to put data, or you're wanting to put, like, you know, some studies out there, whatever it might be, that's done through IT. So marketing purposes, you think CMS, marketing, departmental use only. Okay. So we get this question a lot from people being like, we want to make a web page about whatever it might be. We always have to question, is that for the CMS or does that need to go elsewhere? Yes.
On our issue page currently we have tool that goes to a page like that's your organization, links to those.
Mhm.
But is that good?
Absolutely. 100%. Yep. Yeah. This would be for the person who is like, professor emails and says, I've got a research project starting and I want a web page to post my results. And that's not what the CMS is for. Okay. And then the last thing that I've kind of talked about a little bit already is if you do need help on the web team page, underneath the CMS, we have a CMS 101 training, a CMS 201 training, and the form builder training as well. A lot of questions. It's got everything on there. If you've got questions, these pages are made for the new person. Okay. We've got it broken down into content. And so if you have questions about anything, that is a great place to start. And of course, always feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help. Okay. So final comments, final things I want to talk about, and then I'll hand it over to Joe. Number one thing that is very, very hard for people to understand and is so, so important is the difference between using or browsing to a web page on your desktop compared to your phone. Oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this too, is I'm making this web page on the computer, I forget about the mobile experience. And so yesterday I asked Joe if he could get this for me, and he did. I wanted to show, we took this is a picture. It's kind of hard to see. Let me zoom in a little bit. So this is traffic to gvsu.edu. Okay. And this is for the past 30 days, I think it was. So the past 30 days, you can see what the traffic looks like. 51% of the traffic was from a desktop or laptop computer. 49% was from a phone or a tablet. So when you're creating your web page, remember, yeah, you are creating it on your computer, but you have to remember about the mobile experience, because probably, I would say on any given day, more people are going to visit this page on your mobile device than they are on your computer. And it's a hard thing to get around. It's a hard thing to remember because you're on your computer. It looks good on my computer, but you have to remember the person using their phone. So I want to show you a little trick. And if you've used, oh, this is fun. Oh, neat. Okay, let's move you. Let's open you back up and move you back down. Thank you. If you are using Chrome, there's a little tip for you that I want to show is if you go to View, and if you go down to Developer, there's Developer Tools. And this screen's going to open up and it's going to look a little scary. It's got all this weird text over here. But what's important is right here, this drop down. This is what the web page looks like on a computer. But if you click this drop down, you can see it's got a couple different profiles. And so you can actually see what your page would look like on an iPhone SE. And you're able to actually browse the phone as if you're using you're able to browse the page as if you're using an iPhone. Okay. This is extremely helpful and extremely handy to do because, again, you may look at the page on your computer and it looks great. You go to the phone and you realize, ooh, that does not look good. You have to remember, half the people are going to be seeing it this way. Okay. So it's very, very, very important. So nice little trick in Google Chrome. Like I said, view, developer tools. And then there's this drop down here that will allow you to see what it looks like. There's more options in here than what we really care for, but you'll get the idea of what it looks like on an iPhone or a Samsung, whatever device that they have, because I'm not too familiar with it. So anyway, so this is a great, great tool for you to use, and it comes built into Chrome. It's just a little hidden. And don't be scared by all this text over here. This is extra stuff that you don't really need. Just know about the experience of viewing it on the mobile device. So in conclusion, how do I make my website better? I get asked that all the time. How do I make it better? My number one tip to you is find websites that you like and make a note of it. If you go to the College of Business, or you go to Seidman's website and you see something on Seidman's website that you're like, I really like that. Make a note of it, bookmark it, save it, and then try and recreate it. And if you can't, let me know. I'm more than happy to explain how somebody did something on the page. That's why I am hired by Grand Valley, is to help you with that stuff. So I get asked that all the time. How do I make my website better? There's no right or wrong answer, but find what you like and try to recreate that. In conclusion, number 2, don't steal pictures. I tried to make that very, very clear. Don't steal pictures. If you steal pictures, it's bad, bad, bad. Don't do it. And number 3, it's simple, but remember the eye test. Remember, when you go to a web page, where do you go? Where do your eyes go? It's such a simple and minor thing, but it's so important because you have to think where your eyes go is probably where your audience's eyes go too. And with that first example I showed with Rita, with this page here, where do your eyes go? They immediately did this for me. And if I'm doing it, then your audience is going to do it as well. Okay? Question? What was the last part? That is completely up to you. There are some websites that the administrators are pages long. Probably of those pages, the majority of people don't work there anymore, but they are out there. That is completely up to you and what you feel comfortable with. Now, I will say that when you give, let's say, for example, you want to give Joe access to your page, but you don't want Joe to be able to do certain things. There are certain privileges that you can have and you can check and uncheck on this page here. So if you only want Joe to edit one particular page, you can do it. If you want Joe to view the whole website, you can do it. If you don't want Joe to add new people, you can do that. So it's not an everything or nothing kind of situation. There is very, 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 very much everything in between that you can do. So to answer your question, it's really who do you feel comfortable with and who is going to offer to help you. So any last questions for me before I hand it over to Joe? Yes. Correct. Yes. Yes. Anybody that does it, anybody that is an administrator has to do it, whether they're President Mantella or a freshman. So, yeah.
Really. Video.
Now, let me, and a little story about that too. Before I've been at Grand Valley for just over 3 years now. And when I started at Grand Valley, that was one of my first projects, was to get a better accessibility training. So you're welcome, because prior to me starting, it was an hour and a half and it was a third-party company. And it was very much a generic training. It was an hour and a half. Not that it was bad, but it was lengthy and a lot of it wasn't relevant to what you would necessarily be doing in the CMS. So then when I came on board, that was one of the first projects I did. So the accessibility training is a 16-minute long video. There's 10 questions. That's it. In theory, it should take you 20 minutes. And I think that's on the long side. If it takes you more than 20 minutes, then that's fine, but I really, really highly doubt it will. So you're welcome. So it's not an hour and a half. It's now 20 minutes. So anyway, cool. Any questions at all about with the web or creating stuff on content on the CMS? Feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help. I'm try to be as friendly and helpful as possible. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help. Okay. And now I will hand it over to Joe. It should be. I'll have to stop sharing my screen here. Hold on. So Joe, you will want to share your screen. And I'm going to unmute myself.
Look at that. I'm already up. Zach, can you see my screen? Not up there, over there.
No. Wait, hold on. Now I do.
Excellent. I'm gonna speed through some of this. I know I'm here to talk about SEO, but analytics, I'm sorry, web accessibility is always critical. Web accessibility is one thing that if you do correctly, it's gonna take care of a lot of your other problems. There's a lot of SEO built into web accessibility. There's a lot of quality, just general quality usability built right into accessibility. So we're gonna move through this pretty quickly. A couple of resources, those links right there. If you want the slides, it's /webteam/A11Y. And then GVSU.edu/accessibility is just the general university's accessibility page with tips and resources and tools. So I'll make these slides available after this. So feel free, come back anytime you want. But that's me. That's who I am. Website quality manager, my email. I take care of accessibility stuff. I take care of SEO. I look at analytics. So if you're looking for anything along those lines, website quality, just let me know. Happy to help out. And I fill in for Zach when he's busy, or he fills in for me when I'm busy. So reach out to either of us and we'll get to take care. So just quickly, what we're covering, what web accessibility is, why do we care, what it looks like in the CMS, and then basically some tools and some resources at the very end. So basically, web accessibility is how do you make your page usable to anyone regardless of their ability. That's what web accessibility is. Most people, when you think about it, you think of somebody with a disability using something, using an assistive technology like a screen reader, screen magnifier, head or mouth wands. It goes on and on and on from there. But it's good to know and remember that your pages, 1 in 5 people are going to come in from the US are going to come to your page with some sort of disability. That number is constantly growing as we're aging. Our eyes are getting worse. Our mobility is lacking. So though as more time goes on, those numbers are going to increase. So the more difficult your page is to use, the harder it is for the user. They're going to leave, think it's a terrible experience. So and then the top 3 known disabilities are invisible. So you're talking cognitive issues. So whether maybe it's dyslexia, maybe various types of, you won't know. Looking at somebody, you wouldn't say that person has a disability because one in the top 3 disabilities are invisible. Then there's also known as a permanent, temporary, and situational disability. Permanent disability is something like blindness. That in most cases, that's not coming back. That's permanent. That person is going to be blind. Temporary, thinking that person has a broken arm, typing is going to be difficult during that time. Arm's going to heal. They'll eventually get that mobility back. Situational is you're outside on a sunny day on your computer, sun shining on it. It's a glare. I can't see it. Situation is go inside to fix it. So those are 3 types of disability. But if your page is not set up to be accessible, even something like a bad experience because I'm outside in the glare is a negative experience. That person is going to leave your site with a bad taste in their mouth. So that's why accessibility is important, because we tend to think, oh, it's only somebody who's blind, but it's actually us every day of our lives. Most likely you're going to interact in some way where the page is just not going to function right. So that's why we got to take extra effort to make sure we are accessible. Why do we care about it? It does create a better experience in general. Overall, your site's just going to be more usable. It is the law. We are required. We receive federal funding. The United States government says we have to be accessible to a certain compliance part. The ADA and the WCAG. The WCAG is the kind of the organization that oversees what the standards are. And then generally it's the right thing to do. At a university, we try to promote equality and equal access to education and resources. For pages inaccessible, we're denying somebody that right. So in the CMS, there's really 2 to 3 ways, areas in which you're impacted, in which a user, a general CMS user, can impact the accessibility. The web team has done a lot of work. As Zach was saying, it's minimized what a general user can do, and that's intentional because we've built in a ton of the accessibility features in the back end of it. Images, the alt text, as Zach was talking about earlier, it's required. There's really 4 types of images that you're going to be uploading: informative images, functional images, images of text, complex image. I know I'm going through this very fast. Happy to stick around if you want to talk more about this, but I want to make sure I get to the SEO part as well. So this is going to be an informative image. When you upload an informative image, you might think it's probably mostly for decoration, just to kind of make the page look nice, but there's a lot of value in providing a quality alt text to that. So an image like this, you're going to want an image that represents the concept, information, or emotion, because if somebody can't see that image, you still want to elicit that emotion in them. So something like student proudly holding diploma above her head after graduating from Grand Valley. You're eliciting the emotion of pride, excitement. So regardless if you can see this image or not, you're still conveying generally that information. A functional image typically is a button that does something. So image is used as a link or as a button. We've seen these. It's the play or pause button on YouTube. The alt text for this still required, but you want to tell the user what's going to happen if they click this button. So in this instance, play song title, play video title, pause title, whatever it might be. But in a functional image, you want to explain the function that's going to happen. Images of text, try not to do it as much as possible. Logos are a different story. Logos are fine. They're going to have text in them. But if you can avoid it, don't use images of text. They don't shift well. So when you go from a laptop to a phone, that photo is going to look funny. It might blow up the browser in your phone and you got to scroll left a bunch of times to see it. It's going to get really grainy or pixelated, or if they increase the size of the screen, it's going to look terrible, which also means that text down there is going to become unreadable. So try not to, the best that you can. If you have to, the alt text must include the words that are in the image. So as this example, you could put something like logo of, you don't have to, but it would be Grand Valley State University Institutional Marketing. We have to include the words that are in the image. So if you have a picture of Zach up there with a paragraph long text that he quoted 20 minutes ago, you have to include every word in that. And it's going to just be a terrible experience when someone tries to use a screen reader. Complex images, these are tough. They're your charts, they're your graphs, they're your infographics, a lot of data trying to be represented, which makes these challenging. There's not an awesome way to do this. Typically what we will say is somewhere else on the page, provide the details, provide the data points that are being presented in the charts or graphs. Still gonna have to put alt text, but then simply say, survey data of customer satisfaction, 16, 17, 18, data found throughout page, or something along those lines. You can also, in the, throughout the page, you can also say link to the data. You can put a link on your page that has, basically you can link out to it. Here's the full set of data in more just tabular format. So these are tricky. We know they're valuable though. So just know there's a little extra work that's going to take when you do have these complex images. The list module, which is something available in CMS, can create accessible tables and charts. So think about that. You're basically, with the list module, it's sort of like Excel where you're adding rows and columns, and it's then the list module will take that data and create these tables for you. So that's a good way, that's accessible. That way, when someone hovers over a data point, that data becomes available type of thing. So these are very, very challenging if you're going to use an image. I would say steer away from it the best you can. Grab one data point and make it a big bold font and say, this is what I want you to know from this. More so than trying to squeeze a bunch of this data in there. Those are your 4 images. Generally, there are a couple other options, but those cover the vast majority of the images that are uploaded. Again, that very first image, that informative image is most likely what you're going to use. So just making sure that you're providing alt text, you're explaining what it is. It's not a full paragraph. Just keep it nice, concise, explaining what the image is. So questions about that, I should hold off on questions. We can talk later. Hyperlinks, that's just the blue link that we're all common, the URLs. There's 4 things that we focus on at Grand Valley regarding hyperlinks. These are descriptive hyperlinks, avoiding duplicate hyperlinks, embedding the hyperlink, and then linking to an email address. These are the 4 most common things we see in the CMS, which could potentially cause an accessibility issue. Now with hyperlinks, someone using a screen reader can actually navigate the page through links. They can skip all of your content and just skip through the links. So that's why it's important to make sure that you're properly writing out your URLs or writing out your hyperlinks, because someone can ignore the rest of your content and just pop right through it. Zach's second example, you saw the nice bulleted, nice buttons, easy to read text, and the screen reader will read that text instead. So a descriptive hyperlink, basically what you want to do is make sure that link, whatever the words are in there, makes sense completely out of context to your page. They shouldn't have to read anything else on your page to know where they're going if they click that link. So here's examples. Click here. If I just had a page that said click here, you would have no clue where you're going, right? You just click here. Okay, click here. Where am I going? Who knows? So the better example, so incorrect example, click here for more information about web accessibility. That's bad. Click here, because out of the context, we're going to get rid of the rest of the words that are not linked. It's just going to say click here. A better use is, the correct use would be visit our web accessibility site for more information. The hyperlink is web accessibility site. You know where you're going. You may not know exactly what that content is, but that gives you an idea. Oh, I'm going to go to a web accessibility site.
You chose not to include our. If you set our, then they know they would stay on GVSU. You don't include ours.
Sure.
You don't know if they're, you're sending them somewhere else.
Yeah. Avoiding duplicate hyperlink text. I don't know why I make this so hard on myself. With this, so when linking these hypertext links, hyperlink text, I made this. You do not want to duplicate the same text over and over and over. For example, office hours. if every professor have an office hours and you're just linking office hours, it's going to get confusing for the user. Because as I said, they can just pop through the URLs or pop through the links, office hour, office hour, office hour, office. Oh wait, I need to go back to office hour, office hour. So you want to make sure they're distinguishing from each other. It is an issue if you cannot tell where you're going between two links that say the exact same thing, if they go to different destinations. You can use the same hyperlink text. If it goes to the same destination, that's totally fine. So here's a few examples, and these are going to look funny, but I'll explain to why they make sense. So in this top one, these two contact us go to two separate forms. That's a problem. Someone using a screen reader or simply looking through your page at the links, contact us, contact goes to two different areas. That's a problem. We need to be specific about this contact goes here, this contact goes here. The correct uses, it looks the exact same, but actually those two contact us links are going to the same contact us form. So that would be okay. If in the first instance, you want it to go to separate locations, you would do something like the second set that, oops, where did we go? To our contact us. You want to use this type of thing where you're not saying contact us, but you're more explaining what you're going to again. So how to make your website accessible, sign up for a monthly newsletter. So it's not just the contact us, it's you're explaining it, you're not duplicating your link text. This is a lot nicer too for SEO. Your web's Google appreciates when you do this. Embedding the hyperlink text. I gotta write that down. Embedding the hyperlink text. We do not want to spell out the URL like this. This is a terrible experience because a screen reader is going to read every character now of this link. It's going to read https:// www, on and on and on and on. That's not useful. So you want to avoid spelling out the full URL and just embed it in something like this, something useful that makes sense. Submit an accessibility issue. This example is linking to a PDF, which the best you can, avoid it. If you can't, make sure you're putting that file type in your link as well. So a user knows, oh, this is going to take me to a PDF document. I'm going to have to now manipulate the PDF document. So if it is going to be a file, link to they put the file type right in the link. And then this is completely opposite of what I just said. When linking to an email, you actually link to the email address. Because it's the way it is with email. So email Louis the Laker is actually incorrect because it's linking to an email address. We need to link the actual. So it would be email Louis the Laker, comma, email address, comma, with the email address itself linked. Again, going through those links, just saying email Louis the Laker, someone's gonna be like, oh, how would I do that? Click, now it's gonna open up whatever their email client is. So that's why we separate those out with the email address so the user knows, oh, this is an email, I can come back to this later, or I know it's going to open my email client. Readability is another big issue. Generally, about 50% of adults can read and comprehend at an 8th grade level. I know at a university, we like to speak very academically, and this tends to be a problem. I think the university right now is about a 12th grade writing level. Reading level across all pages. So when possible, take another look at your site. How can we break some of this down? We're using a lot of acronyms, a lot of big words, a lot of things. We can simplify this a bit, make it a little easier to read. But it's also about knowing your audience too. Most visitors only going to read about 20% of your page, like Zach was talking about. Great, header to the bottom. I'm going to find out what I need. So 20%, if you have a huge paragraph in the middle, that's going to get skipped. So be conscious of that. Use bullet points. People tend to read bullet points a lot easier than they do long paragraphs. And then people will spend less than 15 seconds on your page. And that number is probably less now. This is from a couple of years ago, so I'm betting that is even down from now. So when you're making a page, no, people are not going to spend a lot of time on here. So let's get them to what they need. There are some tools. You'll have these slides. You don't need to see this right now. This Hemingway app is kind of a nice way. You can just paste your text right in there. It will tell you how difficult your page is to read. It will give you suggestions. It'll highlight the sentences saying, this is difficult. Try rewriting this sentence. So it's a nice little tool if you want to clean up the text a little bit. And it can kind of say, this sounds a little passive. Maybe you want to try different. This sounds aggressive. Maybe try something passive. So it's a you can download to your computer, right to the hard drive. I just use the online version. You can literally either copy paste something in there, or you can type right in there too. It gives you a word count, gives you your readability score. So it's a helpful tool when trying to clean up some of that stuff. Additional resources, like I said, that / accessibility, that has social media fixes are on there. That's not our office. That's tricky. Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and they tend to have their own policies and procedures. So how to handle video and multimedia is also out there. There's information on how to test your site, the university policies on that site if you do want to read it. Other resources, webaim.org, they have every piece of accessibility laid out. It's a bit technical, but if you do want to really dive in and get going into accessibility, it's a great place to go. Hey, contact us. And then you can also reach out to disability support resources. They can provide some information on that assistive technology. Jeff Sykes used to be at the university. He's no longer here. He was big into assistive technology. I'm not sure who's taken it over since then, but they can definitely help as well. That's me. Also, here you go, color contrast fail. In most cases, you cannot see this. A user, Zach might not be able to see this. We're lucky. I say lucky. We have two people on our team who are colorblind. So
I'm severely colorblind.
So that may not.
I'm the guinea pig.
Yeah.
Can you see this? Nope.
So in theory, this blue on blue is not going to pass. It does here, but don't worry about that part. It does because of the size and boldness, and it's a very strange calculation. SEO, now what everyone's here about. GVSU.edu/SEO. These slides are at webteam/SEO. When we talk about SEO, we talk about Google, and that's because Google is massive. They own about 87% of the US shares of search engine and 93% worldwide. So Google's huge. The other ones are Bing is big. You probably all heard of Yahoo, and DuckDuckGo are the other three, if you want to call them big players. But at 87%, when we focus on SEO, we focus on what does Google want. Google's also very smart. With SEO, we're not here trying to trick Google. They will punish us if we try and trick it. So don't trick it. Again, making a page accessible helps in all of this. Google loves accessible websites. So let's keep it accessible, keep it working, but don't try and trick it. There's easy ways to try and trick it, and Google will devalue your page and basically penalize you for trying to trick it, in which then it's a long road to then try and re-rank for sites that Google has devalued. So what is it? SEO stands for search engine optimization. It's basically a series of technical and contextual principles that can be applied to any web page. And I say web page because it's web page specific. It's not a website. When you do SEO work, it is on a web page. So you can do it and think my site's done. You've done it on one spot. So typically most people don't do every page on the site. Maybe you jump into your analytics, find your 3 to 5 top performing pages and hit those. People can get around and move through your site fine after that. But basically, the higher that you rank in Google search results, the more likely someone is going to trust you, more likely someone is going to visit your site. So all of this work, all of this SEO work is done to try and move us up that rank. Now, Google's continuing to play with things and mess around with things, but you've all seen the top snippets of people also ask this. Here's a couple images. Pizza near me is going to actually give you a map of the pizza places near you. So Google keeps moving these things around, but they're also reporting, while that's great, people skip that. People see the ads, they skip that, and they go right down to the organic search results. So this is still critical. Google will actually put your answers and stuff in those top fields if they match. But it's to try and target that is very challenging because we don't know what Google rates on. Nobody does. Their algorithm is a mystery. So simply put, Google scanning your pages determine if you are answering the question of your user. Everything SEO related is I need to provide the answers that my audience is asking. If you don't, they're going to leave. It's basically boils down to, can I make a return user, somebody that's coming back to my site, compared to my bounce rate? Bounce rate is somebody comes to your site, doesn't interact with anything, leaves. You're not answering their questions. They see you have no value. The higher the bounce rate, the worse your SEO score is. And Google's going to bump you down because somebody else is going to answer that question more effectively. So you want return users. You want to kill that bounce rate. So we're going to cover things that you can do in the CMS, things you can't do, things that you shouldn't do, and then some SEO tools and resources. So things you can do: keyword research and integration, meta titles and meta descriptions, well-written and engaging content, image optimization, and use of HTTPS. I'll jump into these more. So keyword integration is basically, it's what you type into Google to get your answer. So for this session, we'll use campus tour versus campus visit. Those two kind of seemingly pretty similar search terms, and they are, but we'll dive into how they're actually different and why the research is important to put into figuring out which one to do. So keyword research is the process of finding and analyzing search terms that people type into engines, search engines. And okay, great, cool answer. So how do I do that? The very first thing is really you need to understand the content and intention of your page. Does that align with what your audience is looking for? Maybe, maybe not. A lot of times I'll say, and people don't like to hear it, or some people don't like to hear it, you're welcome from the dean. Nobody cares that much. That should not be the first thing they see when they come to your homepage. There's a place for it. Same thing with your mission, vision, values. It's important, but I'm not typing in the ECI mission, vision, values. I'm typing in what programs are offered. When are the application deadline? That's the information we want to highlight first. So while important, not the first thing you want on your homepage to present. So understanding the content, understanding what questions your audience is asking. How do you do that? You ask people. That's free. Ask your friends, ask your family. You know, this is where I work. This is what I do. What questions would you have? You know, what is your interest? Ask the students who have recently applied, who are recently in your program. What are you looking for? How did you find us? Was it easy? Ask the faculty, ask the staff, ask anyone. Let's just start asking, what do you think the intent of our page is? Why would you come to our site? There's also paid and freemium services, NetVantage and Avalanche. I'll just highlight those two. NetVantage, Institutional Marketing has recently used them. They're a great company. Regionally based, I think out of Atlanta, or not Atlanta, Lansing. And then Avalanche Creative is right in Grand Rapids. It's actually a GVSU grad owned company. So I think actually both the partners are Grand Valley grads. So if you have money, if you want to pay to have it done, these people do a great job of doing the research for you. SEO is not hard. It can be time consuming. The principles are pretty simple. It's just, do I have time to do it? Freemium. Everyone loves the freemium. Google search trends. These are all links. You can jump into them. Google search trends, you can just put in a keyword. It will tell you how frequently it's looked at, how frequently someone types it in. We did this for campus tour compared to campus visit. We use campus visit a lot. Campus tour receives 3 times the amount of searches than campus tour does, or campus visit. So that's something we have to look into. We think it's a campus visit. Our audience does not think it is. They think it's a campus tour. We're missing out on a lot of opportunity by one word different. So it's important to look at those trends. Once you start to narrow down a few keywords, let's start looking at the variations. What's the best way that I can phrase this that's going to generate the most impressions? An impression is basically how or where when you show up in a search result. I think it's the top 50 or top 100. Answer the public. Again, you can type your keyword in there. It will basically say what questions people are asking. A question is called a long tail phrase or long tail keyword. They're a lot easier to rank for, but the volume's a lot lower because you have to match the question. What year was Grand Valley founded? If you want to rank for that, that's something you have to actually type in, actually have on your page. So a little trickier, but if you want to start to get the concept and start to understand what people are asking, answer the public is a good way to do that. Keywords everywhere, Chrome extension. I use this quite a bit. It just sits in there. You do your normal business. You just type in a keyword. It runs along the side of your page. It gives you alternate suggestions. It gives you volume, how frequently it's being asked. It gives you the people have also asked. So it's a nice little kind of Chrome extension that runs alongside of everything you're doing. So really easy to kind of just plug in, turn on, and go. I use that a lot. I've had my team turn that on too. It's pretty simple to use. Moz is a big player. So Moz, Ahrefs, and SEMrush are the three big paid services. Moz Keyword Explorer is a free to a point tool. Basically, you can type in a keyword. It's going to give you a bunch of data about that keyword. So as you start to narrow down, this is what my audience is asking, toss it into something like that. It's going to give you suggestions, give you alternatives, give you volume. Same thing with kind of the Ahrefs keyword generator. This will help generate some more ideas around your topic. Google Search Console, again, free from Google. It can be probably more than you need to get into, but what that does is actually provides you with what people are typing in to get to your site. So that's always one thing to remember. Those are not necessarily the keywords, but those are the words people are typing in that have led them to your site. These other tools are more, what is everyone else asking in general, what are the keywords? So the console says this is how they got there. Everything else is more in general. SpyFu is another one, gives you a bunch of data on keywords, volume, all these extra metrics that can help you, again, narrow down what you're looking for. Freemium, I think they gave you like the top 10. I think Moz gives you 10 searches. QuestionDB, similar to Answer the Public, will give you questions people are, and these are actual questions people are asking. It scans all of Google's data and says, this is the questions being asked regarding your keyword. And then in general, Google, when you type in a keyword, if you scroll the bottom of the search results page, there are 6 to 8 little pieces of information that say, people look at this. Have you thought about this? Here's another suggestion. So if you type it in, it basically Google's saying, that's great, but have you considered these other options, which more people are likely searching for? So type in your word, scroll to the bottom, see what other people are typing to help narrow down your keyword. And I keep saying keyword because it really gets down to, you want to rank for one word or phrase. You don't want to rank for everyone. You really want to focus on your one keyword. So keyword, key phrase. Key phrase is usually like 3 to 5 words. What are continuing education, campus visit. So you focus on one per page, whatever that page is about. It's the main topic of that page. You want to use it about 5 times throughout your page, or roughly every 200 words. You want to try and sneak that in, making it natural. You want it to sound natural. Don't just cram it in at the beginning of the sentence. Write for a human. We're humans. Google, surprisingly, is very human, believe it or not. But write like you would write just anything. Don't try and trick Google. If it sees you're cramming it in there, it's going to devalue your page. So include related or similar keywords, and you can kind of do this with a similar usage. So as I was saying, we're going to implement campus 2 or more. That doesn't mean campus visit is bad and get rid of it. We're going to hit campus tour as our main focus, our main keyword. We're going to put in campus visit throughout as well, because we want to grab that audience also. So find your main keyword, but also find those little alternatives. Google's smart enough, they'll kind of pair everything together. So now you have your keywords, you've done your research on your page. Where do we do it? You can add it to your page URL, page title, meta description, meta titles, page content, images, lots of places to add this. So when I say every 200 words, that's in your content. That's what everyone can see. There's a lot of places to put some of these keywords that not everyone sees. Google understands it and appreciates it because it helps Google to better understand what your page is about. So in your content that you're writing, one keyword about 5 times every 200 words or so. We can also put it in the page URL, and you have the ability to control the page URL in the CMS. Put it in there. So if you're paying for campus visits, schedule a campus visit is our page title. It's great. It's going to rank well, but it's not something that's going to overwhelm a user, just the page title. So you can even hide the page title if you want, but you're telling Google, by the way, campus visit's here. Come for a campus visit. Let's put it in there. If it's natural, again, don't force these things. Friendly URLs. Here's an example. You can put whatever you want in that URL. The CMS takes care of this. In most cases, is going to grab your page title and put in there. So again, your URL, if you think when you search Google, you get the page title, under it, you get the URL. If your keyword is in there, it's going to highlight it. So the more you can kind of fit your URL in there, that's not necessarily the content, the better. Outside of that, general one and every 200 words. Like I said, the CMS takes care of this. You can hide your page title, but just make sure that it is in your URL. You're using properly, well-written content, well-written URLs. Meta titles. This is a lot. So here you go. Here's your URL. So you can see at the top. I can look at this. I can use a mouse and point to where I'm going. Here's your URL for web team. It's going to look. It pins this out and says, "Oh, here's the word web team." This is what we're looking. Your meta title is what is displayed in Google. It's not always your page title. You have the ability to add a meta title. A lot of times, for a meta title, you want to make it unique. You don't want the same. You don't want pages titled the same thing. You don't want the same meta titles either. You're going to confuse Google where it's supposed to go. Use it. It's relevant. It's near the beginning. So put your keyword in near the beginning of your page title, or at least your meta title. Sorry. And the meta title can be edited. I'll say this. When you're on your page, right under the page title, there's like a black more button, more ... You can edit your meta title and your meta description in there. So you can actually change what Google displays. So you can work in your keywords. If you want Web Team Grand Valley, that's going to default. That's just what Grand Valley sends to Google. You can change that. You could say, Web Team's awesome. Check us out tomorrow. And Google will say, oh, sounds good. They may or may not choose it. Sometimes Google thinks they're smarter than we are, which in fairness, they probably are. But that's work you can do. Google will still read the title. And if your keywords are in there, we'll still understand, oh, that's what this page is about. Max of 60 characters. It's gonna, you'll see the long page, so it's gonna just have the 3 dots. It won't actually read your page title. And then if you can include a call to action, apply now, visit, contact us, put one of those close to the beginning as well. Those tend to respond better than just a page title. Meta descriptions, similarly, you can control what the meta description about your pages. So again, include a call to action in here. Answer the question in here if you can. If you know my keyword is campus visits, people want to know what to wear for campus visits, let's put that in. Or if there's a cost, see if we can get that in those first 160 characters of our meta description. That meta description doesn't have to be on your page. Doesn't have to be content. It can be, but it does not have to be. If you do nothing, that's totally fine. Google's going to do its best anyway. But if you want to try and override that with your keywords, with answering these questions, with a call to action, you want to use the meta description and the meta title. Like I said, also Google finds that, says this is good content. I trust this is what they're doing because they've taken the steps to tell me 3 times before I even get to their content. This is what they're doing. well-written content, as we're talking, relevant page title, make sure your page titles are relevant to what your content is. Don't say free giveaway, and on your page, you're not talking about anything regarding a free giveaway. Google will say free giveaway. I don't see anything about that. You're devalued. So make sure your content is relevant. Make sure like your URL, so you can see here, we have design elements. It's all consistent throughout. It's being relevant and staying consistent throughout your page. You're on message for that page, basically. Incorporate your keywords. There you go. There's 5 times. There's your 5 type. You can do more. Shoot for no more than probably, depending on the length of your page, 10 is probably the max you want to do. Anything above that, Google is going to consider it keyword stuffing, is what it's called, and they don't like that. So 1 in your meta title, 1 in your description, 3 in your content. Page should be a minimum of 200 words. If it's not, Google says it's light. It's light on content. It also doesn't like that. So a couple quick things. 3 to 5 in your content, 200 words. Include a meta title, include a meta description. That's a quick start. Those are 3 things right off the bat that you can do that instantly is going to bump your page up. You're going to tell Google what they want to know with 3 quick steps. And Google says, thanks. What else is well-written content? It's free of spelling errors. It's free of grammar errors. It's free of broken links. If Google tries to find other pages, and that's how Google indexes things. It goes to your page, hits a link, goes someplace else, comes back. So it does that. If it hits a page and it's broken, you're no longer the authority on this information. If you don't care enough to make sure your pages aren't broken, neither does Google, and neither does any other user searching through Google. So making sure that you're free of spelling errors. Google is also getting smart enough to recognize acronyms, but try to keep them somewhat to a minimum, but they're getting better at it. Grammar is US English grammar, so don't worry about British grammar. Try to keep your page somewhat relatively updated. Here's an example. You see here's two search results back to back. I think I typed in SEO, and looking at this, SEO is in technology anyway. Anything 2 years old is probably too old anyway. But looking at this, I don't know if I'm going to trust any content that's from May 28th, 2019. Now that is June-ish something, 2022. That's too long ago. You just don't trust that content anymore. So roughly every month, even if it's something simple, maybe changing out an image, freshen up the page a little bit. That will change that update date and keep it relevant. It'll say to your user, hey, we're updating this regularly. This page by Ahrefs.com, like you're not updating this information. It's been almost over 3 years now, and you haven't changed your page. So roughly monthly, if you can. And again, write for humans. Google can read like a human, so just write like you normally would. Don't try and trick it and force these keywords in there. Images. Zach talked about this a little bit. We talked about earlier. The alt text, put your keyword in your alt text if you can. If it's natural, that's another spot that you can sneak it in if you want. Make sure the images are also unique. Don't repeat the image over and over and over again unless it's your logo. And then avoid the general stock photography or clip art. Google recognizes it. Google is really, really getting very good at recognizing images. So it will recognize that. And if it's seen that image 10,000 times online, it's gonna be like, nothing new here. So use unique images to you. Try and keep them fresh on your site. Image optimization. This is the #1 thing that slows your website down. Google likes a fast responding website because half of us are on our phone. If your phone is not tied to the Wi-Fi, if you're running off of the cell tower, if it doesn't respond fast, people are leaving instantly. So when you're saving an image, you can do save for web. Other options are Tiny PMG or Optimizilla, 2 free programs. You basically just drag and drop your image there. It compresses it, doesn't change the aspect ratio too much. The image stays pretty clean, but you can drop the file size by about half, which immediately speeds up your page. Your file names, why not put your keywords in there too? Instead of just uploading whatever it was saved as, if you didn't save it anything fancy, here's an example. of a terribly long, awful JPEG. If you want, change or you should change it to a friendly URL, make it so student leader initiative. So that's something we're focused on. Maybe student leader initiative is a keyword phrase. Put in your image. Google will say, oh, look, there it is again. That's a good value. That's telling me that they're still talking about this. And Google doesn't care as much about those things. They just want to make sure it's not in your content, because in most cases, people aren't going to see your file size or your file names. Things that you can't control, you just have to deal with these. Inbound links, people who send traffic to your site. Can't really do anything about it. Great. You can ask people to send traffic to your site. They may not, but you can't control it. You can't control what those people use as the keyword links. So if you want to send them to a page about your application dates, they may view it as something completely different. They may say application, or might even an application like cool form here. So you can't control what that is. You can ask them again. They may not care. The age of the user, can't control that. Whoever comes to your site. These are things Google pays attention to that you have no say in. You can't control if someone comes back to your site, but if you're making a quality site, answering questions, you can encourage them to come back. But I can't tell Zach, hey, come back here next week and help my Google rank. Doesn't work that way. You can't control if that user shares your website, whether through a blog or something, or maybe through an email to their coworkers. If it's a social media post, you can't control if it's liked or shared that way. You don't decide the locale of the user. These are all things that make a difference. If no one from Grand Rapids is searching Grand Valley, it's just not going to show up in Grand Rapids. But if a bunch of people in Pittsburgh are, then it's going to start to populate higher in Pittsburgh for whatever reason. But so you can't control that. You can't control the seasonal irrationality for people. For example, most of the time, there's going to be an application period. You can't control if someone decides on Christmas morning they want to wake up and apply for a program. So you can't always control that. You can't control who their friends are. If they word of mouth tell a friend, and this goes on and on and on. You just can't, nothing you can do but make a quality website. Things you shouldn't do, keyword stuffing, like I said, forcing it in unnaturally, hiding your keywords. You don't have to worry about that. The web team doesn't allow you to. Don't purchase links. And what I mean is don't pay a company or a blogger to just put your URL on their page. Google sees that and say, well, that's not a trusted source. So if your website's on a not trusted source, I'm not going to trust you. Don't purchase it. Don't spam people. Don't just send your page out to everyone. There's that thin content, no less than 200 words. Don't do sneaky redirects. Again, getting at that, like, don't create a redirect that says free giveaways and then send them to something that's free giveaways. That's a sneaky redirect. Don't violate copyright. Google will have a big issue if you're violating a copyright. Don't link to other spammy sites. This is, again, is why I suggested using HTTPS. If you leave Grand Valley, we've recently switched over to that. If you leave Grand Valley and go to an HTTP site, you will get a warning now that says you're potentially leaving a secure site to a potentially harmful site. So try not to do that, and don't send people to bad sites in general. Don't let your site get hacked. That happens. Just try not to. And then comment spamming, you don't have to worry about that. But if you were to create a blog, don't have your friends or you go in and continuously comment to make it look more active. Google will see that and say, stop it. Lots of tools and resources. Again, this is really just copied from what's throughout the site. This Moz Basics, if you want to get a really, really good understanding of the basics of SEO, it takes a little while to get through, but they do a fantastic job of laying it out. This is what SEO is. They also tell you how with your content, how to do the research. So if you have time, that's a great place to start and walk through. So basically, why is SEO important? The chart on the right is the click-through rate for the top 10 search results. So the old theory was the 10 blue links, which Google showed 10 blue links as your search result. This shows you how likely you are to get a click based on those results. So 75% of people don't get past the third link on a third organic search result on a search result. So when aiming for these things, you really want to get in the top 3. Doesn't mean they can't find you because they might be looking for you, but just know general organic search results, 75% of people will click on the first 3 links, and that will be their journey. So all this work is to try and get in those top 3. That's the information again. I will say one last thing: when doing your keyword research, don't worry about the keywords that are brand related. Don't worry about GVSU application date. People, if someone's searching GVSU, we're going to come up. We're going to probably be the top 20 links. So focus more on how do I attract the non-GVSU targeted audiences already. So happy to stick around. I don't have anything else going on today. So happy to stick around and talk more about this or accessibility, or my information is there. Email me. This is what I do. So happy to talk through it. We have some other tools on the web team that we can also provide some more data as well if you're looking for some more data. So it took a little longer, but we got through it.
I know, I'm such a liar.